Welcome to the Introduction to Managing Clusters with Ops Director tutorial from MarkLogic University. In this video, you will discover what is MarkLogic Ops Director, learn about managing MarkLogic clusters with Ops Director, and see a demonstration of Ops Director. Ops Director is a tool that improves the manageability of MarkLogic. It can be thought of as a single pane of glass for your MarkLogic system. Today, most organizations have DBAs managing more and more data in servers than ever before. A few years ago, a DBA may have been managing a few servers. Now they may be responsible from anywhere from 25 to 100 servers or more. It is critical to make DBAs more efficient at their jobs, and modern databases must be as easy to manage as possible. MarkLogic 9 introduces new features to manage globally distributed MarkLogic database clusters throughout their life cycles. One of those features is Ops Director, which provides a single pane of glass for MarkLogic administration to make it easier to manage MarkLogic, whether you're an experienced MarkLogic DBA or one just learning. Ops Director presents a consolidated view with rich visuals and dashboards. It streamlines monitoring and troubleshooting of clusters with improved alerting, log searching, and performance reporting. Ops Director provides dashboard summaries of MarkLogic resources, such as clusters and hosts running MarkLogic, and MarkLogic application servers and databases used in enterprise applications. A heat map summary of problematic systems. Configuration details of MarkLogic, including clusters, hosts, databases, and application servers. Unified metrics of performance data gathered from monitoring history. Unified logs. System health status, and MarkLogic licensing information. Ops Director leverages MarkLogic best practices for security, including role-based access control to data and views, administered locally or through LDAP. Additionally, Ops Director allows administrators to create ad hoc groups of MarkLogic resources, such as databases and application servers, for even greater flexibility. A single Ops Director instance can manage multiple clusters. Managed clusters collect information about the state of their cluster, including error logs, configuration data, and meters, and securely send their data back to the Ops Director application app server. The Ops Director application app server receives this information and stores it in an Ops Director database. The browser then executes queries against the Ops Director database to retrieve information for display. Ops Director is designed to adapt to a range of MarkLogic deployments, from a single cluster in a single data center to hundreds of clusters. Ops Director has three setup options. Co-located, where a cluster serves as both an Ops Director application cluster and a managed cluster. Single data center, which is a cluster serving as an Ops Director application cluster that communicates with managed clusters. Hybrid, a cluster serves as both an Ops Director application cluster and a managed cluster that communicates with other managed clusters. A multi-cluster configuration can manage local and remote clusters across a network, so as long as all the clusters are available and not concealed behind a firewall. All communication among Ops Director servers is covered with strong security. The Ops Director management solution offers the same high availability and disaster recovery as the MarkLogic database, assuming that a minimum of 3 nodes are being managed. Likewise, the Ops Director management solution offers the same backup and restore capabilities as MarkLogic databases. So what MarkLogic data is transmitted to Ops Director? One example is log data from server error logs. Log messages generated at or above the log level specified for delivery to Ops Director will be queued and sent as quickly as possible. Errors generated at a level of critical or higher will block while they are being sent in order to make sure that a delivery attempt is made before the host restarts. Filtering of log data is by the log level. The levels can be set independently for the server error log, each application server log, and the task server log. Configuration data is also sent to ops director. Whenever one of the server configuration files changes, ops director is notified. When ops director is notified of a configuration change, if the change is more recent than the local data that ops director has for a particular configuration, ops director will retrieve the necessary payloads from the managed clusters in the form of resource documents. This configuration data includes any changes made to the server configuration files. Ops director leverages this interaction to obtain information about every applicable resource on each managed cluster, including groups, hosts, databases, application servers, etc. Timestamps allow ops director to maintain a history of the configuration of managed clusters over time. Each time configuration on the managed cluster changes, ops director is notified. Ops director calls a host on the managed cluster to get the modified configurations. Any new or changed configuration is saved with a new timestamped URI. Efficient access to the most recent changes is managed with properties. Each managed cluster sends metering data to ops director. Filtering of meters data is by time, sent every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and so on. The managed hosts introduce a small random adjustment factor in the actual intervals in order to avoid the situation where every managed host hits ops director at exactly the same moment every time. The collection of data is intended to have minimal impact. Configuration of the collection service on the managed cluster establishes the types of data sent and the limits and filters on that data. The ops director instance can also establish limits. The collection service implements a simple protocol to select the most stringent limit. Ops director collects and transmits data in a best attempt service level agreement. Transmissions are not transactional in the sense of database operations and have less priority over all critical and most other MarkLogic services. A best attempt approach is used to provide for periods of resource interruptions, heavy load, and badly configured systems, while providing the configuration data within the SLA. The protocol provides for the detection of missing data by both the source and the target for redundancy, but does not guarantee all requested data will be sent and is not designed for guaranteed error-free delivery. When ops director is installed, an app server named Secure Manage is created with SSL enabled. Before you log into the cluster to be managed, you must copy the ops director certificate authority certificate from the ops director application host to a host on your managed cluster. Data in transit is secured via HTTPS. Certificates can be internally generated by ops director or externally generated then imported. Storage, logs, and configuration data can be encrypted, adding another layer of security. Ops director users do not have to be administrators. Minimum rights include the opsdir-user role plus any role or roles configured in ops director to monitor certain groups of resources, such as particular databases and application servers. Role-based access to resources let DBAs and others monitor and view configuration data only for the resources for which they are responsible. After ops director has been installed, it can be accessed on port 8008. The initial display shows the monitor view, a heat map summary of states of monitored MarkLogic clusters and resources. These resources include hosts running MarkLogic, application servers, and databases. The resources we see in the heat map are limited according to what we are permitted to see by MarkLogic roles. In this view, this shows an example of what we would see in the cluster if one of the hosts went down. When filtering by resources, you can also select the Emit Ancillary Database option to not include system databases, such as app services, extensions, last login, meters, schemas, security, and others. The cluster problem distribution visualizes cluster events by time and date over the last 7 days. You can hover over the event icon for details. The top problematic hosts display a bar chart of hosts in your enterprise that experiences the greatest number of events over the last 24 hours. Hover over one of the bars in the bar chart for details. Scrolling again, the busiest servers display a bar chart of the MarkLogic application servers in your enterprise with the greatest request rates over the last 24 hours. Hover over any of the bars in the chart for details. Finally, slowest servers display a bar chart of MarkLogic application servers with the greatest latency over the last 24 hours. Hover over any of the bars to view details. The Manage view shows details for selected MarkLogic resources or resource categories. The default view displays a list of clusters across an enterprise in a data grid. The left-hand side is a navigation tree listing resources according to their object hierarchy. The Analyze view displays a comprehensive set of detailed charts to analyze utilization and performance of system resources, including disks, CPU, memory, databases, and servers. You can select a date and time range to inspect. Select resources to examine from the resource panel on the left-hand side. The Support view shows alert messages for your application servers in your enterprise. View and filter server logs and display tasks that run on managed MarkLogic clusters. Alert messages can be acknowledged in whole or selected messages to remove them from the list. Acknowledged messages can always be shown again. Configure role-based access control to resources with the Console Settings view. Manage user accounts and licensing, as well as define telemetry settings. Telemetry controls resource data sent back to MarkLogic to facilitate issue resolution and is off by default. Telemetry data is encrypted and packaged, sending diagnostic and system-level usage information about MarkLogic clusters with minimal impact to performance. No application data is collected or sent. License information includes number of license cores, number of used cores, and host operating system type. In the Console Settings view, Resource-Based Access Control, RBAC for short, control which users have access to the resources defined in resource groups. Roles created in this view are accessible in the administrative interface. For example, you might create resource groups of certain application servers, databases, and forests for which certain DBAs are responsible. To constrain by clusters, create resource groups that contain all of the resources in the cluster or clusters you wish to restrict. You could create 4 groups, one for hosts, one for all app servers, one for databases, and one for the cluster. Grant the desired roles access to these 4 groups. In this demonstration, the monitor view is advising us of an issue in one of our clusters. One of the MarkLogic hosts, ml2.local, is down. We can drill into that by clicking on the host to get a little more info. Of the 4 hosts, we have one that's reporting an issue. Clicking on that, we can drill down and find more information about the particular host. And indeed, it is ml2.local. Scrolling down, we can search the messages related to this particular problem and see if we can determine what may be going on. And it looks like the entire node is not available. So we'll have to check that out. Because the MarkLogic host is down, any application server or other resource on that host is also unavailable. An issue has appeared in the monitor heat map, different from our previous demonstration. According to the heat map, one or more databases appeared to need our attention. Clicking on the database view and then selecting the one that is in red, the MLU demand database is offline. Looking at the messages for the MLU on-demand database, there is a message to review the forest MLU-on-demand-01. In the messages over in the message list, it appears that MLU on-demand-01 is disabled, but we'll have to check that out. So this would be a good time to drill down into the resources. In the Manage view, we'll scroll down the resource list until we find things that have a red dot indicating that this resource has an issue. And here we find our MLU on-demand database that has an issue. Selecting that to constrain our views to that, we know that the MLU-on-demand database had an issue with the force. So we'll further constrain to force. Looking at the detail table, the MLU-on-demand-01 has indeed been disabled. So the issue is now clear. Someone has disabled the force. And of course, we'll have to check out why and get it enabled again as soon as possible. We have been looking at all resources in the managed clusters because, as administrators, we have access to everything. But what if a DBA for our MarkLogic University application needed access to manage the resources for which he or she was responsible? Let's log out as our administrator. Then, at the login screen, let's log back in as Emma, the DBA in charge of a MarkLogic University application and database. Logging in as our DBA, you can see the issue that we had researched previously is still showing because Emma has access to the resources that were affected, the MLU-on-demand database and application servers. But the resources Emma can see are constrained to only those which she has access by her role. In her messages, they are constrained equally. We can still go through and drill down exactly as we did before, including going to Manage, selecting our database, and going to Force. And we can still see that the MLU-on-demand-01 is disabled. So Emma can now drill down into the problem, view that there is a problem, and go research why it's happening. Learn more by visiting the Ops Director Guide at https://docs.marklogic.com/guide/OpsDIR and view a recorded webinar on Ops Director at http://www.marklogic.com/resources/introducing-ops-director-marklogic-9. In this episode, you were introduced to Ops Director, learned about managing MarkLogic with Ops Director, and viewed a demonstration of Ops Director. To get MarkLogic, download from developer.marklogic.com. Get more training by visiting marklogic.com/training. Also, a complete selection of on-demand topics is available at mlu.marklogic.com/ondemand. Or download the MarkLogic mobile app available on both the Apple App Store and Google Play. And don't forget to show off what you've learned. Add MarkLogic as a skill on your LinkedIn profile today. Thank you for watching this MarkLogic University on-demand tutorial.